Okay, so I'd like to welcome everybody to this online training. Just a wee bit about what we're going to be doing. I'll introduce myself and then we will give you a rundown on what exactly we're going to cover and what outcomes we hope to achieve. So, um, EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, is also known as tapping. Myself and my partner, Karen Clements, who is also an EFT practitioner and trainer like myself, we run EFT Tapping Training Ireland. And I'll just show you then Karen's details here. So this is Karen, and she is an EFT practitioner and trainer. She's also a matrix reimprinting practitioner, which is an advanced form of EFT. Her details and our website can be found at kchealthmatters.webs.com, where you'll find out more about Karen, and there is her contact telephone number. Myself, Nigel Colmer, I on Facebook have Nigel Colmer EFT as well as EFT Tapping Training Ireland. So I operate two web pages. My website, where you can find more information on myself and indeed a lot of resources such as EFT tap along videos and audios. You can find that at clearyourfears.co.uk. Okay, so what do we hope to achieve throughout this online video webinar presentation? So I'm going to be explaining to you how emotions affect the mind and the body. We're going to be highlighting issues that EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, can help you with, and how you can apply EFT to change those negative emotions and physical feelings to more resourceful, positive ones. There are a number of exercises which we can do, and one of them is to identify your most pressing issue, in other words, your MPI. So I will then be showing you a recorded demonstration. We normally would do this in a group. This is something that you can do yourself. At the end of this presentation, you will have enough knowledge to be able to run this within a group. There's going to be then a period on the live trainings where we would have question and answers. Now, clearly, that wouldn't be possible because this is a recording, but I will have contacted the coordinator who is providing and letting you view this video today, and I'm quite sure that I can come on live at a later stage and answer any questions you might have. So in terms of emotional freedom techniques, you're probably wondering what it is. We're going to go into the mechanics of it quite soon, but in terms of what it can help people with, it can help people with all of these. People who maybe are anxious, people who've been involved in some sort of an incident such as a car accident, people who are depressed, maybe have lost a loved one, people who maybe have emotions such as feeling guilty, maybe can't get to sleep at night, and especially limiting beliefs. That is, to be honest, another topic for another day. We'll touch on it briefly today, but limiting beliefs are, if you like, the driver to a lot of the feelings that we have today. But what we're trying to do in this webinar is to show EFT as a self-help tool that can help you feel good in the moment. Please understand that we're not going to be giving you a full training. There's a normal 3-day practitioner training which is crammed full of all of the different protocols that you can use within EFT. This demonstration, this video and webinar is just going to be touching on the main protocols so that you can come away today with something that you can actually use day or night to help yourself get back into a more balanced state. EFT is used quite widely to help people with physical pains, who maybe suffer panic attacks, who have some of these issues such as sadness, feeling shame, general stress, maybe people who've been abused in some way, or people who have suffered what they call big T traumas. And then clearly on the right hand side there are fears and phobias. Some people hate speaking in public, they maybe fear going to the dentist, fear needles, maybe fear driving, and so on, heights, and maybe a fear of water. So those are just a few examples as to what EFT can be used to address. Okay, so emotional freedom techniques and the mind-body connection. Okay, this graphic then shows what I will talk a wee bit more in detail in a few minutes. It's regarding the mind. They say that we have two minds, the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. In terms of processing, our conscious mind uses 5% of our overall biology. Our unconscious mind uses 95% and influences, if you like, 95% of our biology and our way of thinking. What do I mean by that? So our conscious mind can control our willpower, it can control our short-term memory, our logical thinking and our critical thinking. In other words, we have a problem and we look at it consciously, but more often how we actually end up dealing with the situation and how that situation or event may affect us long after it has happened, it depends on our beliefs, it depends on our inbuilt emotions, our habits, our values, our reactions, our long-term memory, our imagination and our intuition. So basically what do we mean by that? If we have inbuilt ways of behaving, if we have inbuilt ways of behaving based on our past events, based on our habits and based on our beliefs, then that will influence how we look and are able to address stress. Bruce Lipton is a stem cell biologist and he's best-selling author of the book The Biology of Belief, and is a recipient of the 2009 Goa Peace Award. He is a man that is well worth researching. Maybe do a check on the internet for him. So Bruce Lipton asks then the question, are we running our lives with our conscious mind, or are we running our lives with the subconscious programs? He suggests that and backs and agrees with the science that's revealed that only 5% of the day we're operating our nervous system using our conscious mind's creative wishes and desires. In other words, our willpower. Whereas actually 95% of the day our life is coming straight out of the subconscious programs. Now, my analogy is and I'll show you here, an image of a tape recorder. Obviously, technology's moved on, but I like to think of this because when I was growing up, I had the option of recording something, say for example off the radio, and I would press the play and the red record button, and then it would be recording whatever noise has been made in the background, or if it was recording one of my favourite songs that's been played in the radio, that's how I would record it. When I want to stop the recording, I press the stop button, and then when I want to listen to what I've recorded, I press play. So what's this got to do with anything to do with EFT, you're probably asking? When we are not 7 or not the 7 years, we are like sponges. We're children and we take in everything we see and everything we experience, everything that is said to us and everything we physically feel is recorded. And because when we're born, we don't have any programs, if you like, any habits. But whenever we get to 7, we have experienced 7 years of life. And for everybody, it'll be slightly different. But we record all of those programs and they form the platform, if you like, as to how we're going to be able to work in life or deal with our life, and how, especially in this case, how we can deal with stress. If we have had a lot of negative experiences and our record and play button have been pressed together and we've recorded everything up until we're 7, whenever we then grow up and later on in life, those programs, those recordings become subconscious, so that whenever we face stress or whenever we face maybe overwhelm or challenges in our life, it's like us pressing the play button, and the play button plays the programs from the past on a subconscious level. We may see somebody and we don't know what it is about them, but we just don't like them, or we don't trust them, or we don't feel comfortable. We might be out somewhere socially and there's just, you get a sensation or a vibe when you're in a group of people that you just think something's not quite right here. Or there could be an irrational fear of maybe dogs or something that causes us concern and we don't know where it came from. Chances are it has stemmed from an earlier event whenever we were younger, and our subconscious that sponge has just taken in that information and it has done it, and we've maybe had a negative experience, and for the rest of our life our body and mind says, I don't know what it is. Maybe the memory's there, but maybe the memory's not there, but I don't know what it is, but I don't like that situation, or I don't like that person, so I'm going to stay away from them. Why are we doing that? We're doing that to keep ourselves safe. So stress. How does stress show up in the body? So I'm going to be talking a wee bit about the fight-flight response, but in general terms, Whenever we are stressed out, there are resources within our body which we no longer need at that time. It's not important that we digest our food, you know. It's not important that certain processes in our body are completed. What is more important is to react to the stress. This is a primal situation. This dates back to what we've talked about or will be talking about, the primal response of fight or flight. So if we're under stress, the muscles in our body become more tense. Our heart beats faster. The blood is moved from our digestive system, from our internal organs to the extremities. We can see our face flush. We can feel the strength in our muscles, so that we can either stand and fight or we can flee. Our mouth can go dry. Our pupils dilate. Our lungs, we breathe faster. So we get deep breathing so that we can actually physically fill our lungs to full capacity to be able to deal with the situation. I'm sure you've experienced these. The most common ones, people's hearts start to race. You can start to feel that sort of tingling feeling in your body, and that is because adrenaline and cortisol is now flooding our system, getting us ready. Now, fight, flight, don't misinterpret that. Does that mean we're going to fight every time we're under stress? No, but it's a primal response. We may still stand up for ourselves if we feel that we are facing stress, or we may decide to withdraw from the event for safety reasons. It is important to point out that there are acceptable levels of stress. We do need a certain level of stress in our life to keep us safe, to keep us alert. If we were walking across a road and we saw somebody coming from our right or left hand side at speed, we wouldn't stand there and think to ourselves, okay, I see a car coming at me at speed here. We would do all we could, unconsciously nearly, to get ourselves off that main road back onto the pavement, hopefully to safety. Or if we're maybe outside and it's a very, very windy day and maybe a branch comes off a tree, we're not going to stand there and look at this branch coming closer and closer to us. We're going to step out of the way and keep ourselves safe. So that's okay when stress is on a low scale, an everyday scale that happens for a short period of time. The problem arises whenever we are under stress for longer periods of time. One way to explain this is the fight-flight response. So whenever we encounter a situation similar to something that we've maybe experienced before, in other words, we're being re-triggered, what happens is we're actually taken back to an original traumatic event and we re-experience all the emotions of that original event. Okay, so there are many, many ways to explain the fight-flight response. The one analogy that I would use quite a lot is if we take ourselves back to cavemen days. So we've got two cavemen. They're both standing on a rock. They're in the middle of a jungle, and they've got their spears and they've got their shields ready to defend themselves or maybe to go hunting. Now, they hear a rustle in the bushes. It could be that big Bengal tiger that is on the prowl as well. So the two different cavemen have two different approaches. One is completely laid back, so chilled out. When his mate says to him or suggests to him that they better get out of the way because this tiger could jump out of the bushes, the one that's so chilled out, he's just not motivated. He says, no, don't worry about it, this is not going to happen. Just relax, this will pass, don't be getting so stressed out. And he just lies back with his hands folded behind his head, and he just takes life in his own at his own pace. And then there's the other caveman who is triggered, if you like, who is hyper vigilant, who's thinking to himself, right, I'm not going to be this tiger's dinner, I'm going to get myself the hell out of here. So bring yourself back then 5 minutes later, and there's only the one caveman returning back onto that rock again. I think we have a fair idea as what may have happened here. So the tiger has simply come out of the bushes, pounced on the caveman that's been so chilled out, and had him for dinner. The other guy who had heard the rustle in the bushes, he disappeared off, he ran away, and then whenever everything was settled again, he came back to the rock to realise that his mate had been taken out. Now I'm sort of making light of this, but it's quite a serious thing, because this wiring system of being on high alert is what keeps us safe. It's what keeps people alive, and it does stem back to those early days. Primitive man, whenever he had a choice, he could fight or flight. He could stand and fight, or he could run. Now, in this situation, one of the cavemen decided to run, the other one didn't, and he paid the ultimate price. So in terms of fight flight, what does that actually mean? Well, what it means is what I've basically alluded to there. When we're stressed out, our primal options would be to stand and face that stress, to stand and face that danger, or run away. There is a third option, which is to freeze. Again, this is something we could come back to later on, or especially in another video, but the freeze response is a natural response as well. It's when we're totally overwhelmed, when we can't decide to do anything. It's often when we're faced with a big trauma, such as something where we have, it's isolating, we just don't know what to do, we've no strategy, it's unexpected, and basically we just find it very difficult to make a decision as to what to do, and the body just shuts off for the duration. So those are the responses that are inbuilt. So when you add our negativity bias, what do they mean by negativity bias? Well, basically because of the fact that in early days we had to make decisions that would keep us alive, we expected the worst. We expected bad things to happen to ourselves. So it's normal that the brain then, the neural pathways in the brain over centuries of development have always been acutely set up for the stress response. So I want to talk now about the stress response. In EFT terms, it has been proven via CT scans and MRI scans that whenever we complete EFT process, we're actually sending a common signal to the part of the brain called the amygdala. This is the brain, if you like, the part of the brain, if you think of it in terms of it like a smoke alarm. So the amygdala, two of them, both of them either side of the brain. What happens with those is they're like our smoke alarms, and they're on alert whenever something comes into our environment that we feel triggered by. Then it sets off the stress response, and it's been shown that whenever we apply EFT, we actually calm that part of the brain down so that we don't fall into the same patterns of behavior which maybe no longer serve us. So we'll cover that in a wee bit more detail. So the stress response, what is the stress response, and how does the amygdala play a part in that? So in the last few years, there's a lot more has been learnt scientifically about EFT and how it works and how it does more than, but it suggests it interrupts the fight, flight, freeze response, and it reprograms the brain and body to act differently. But unfortunately, today, there are many non-life-threatening situations that can cause a flood of stress hormones. Being stuck in a traffic jam when we're late for work, worrying about meeting a work or study deadline, or an angry look or a word from someone can be just enough to trigger a cascade of reactions. So how does this actually apply to yourselves? Well, I'm sure you know of the situations where you would feel triggered, where you'd feel overwhelmed, where you'd feel anxious, where you might feel depressed, where you just feel panic. These are all normal responses. Whenever we're triggered and the stress response kicks in, adrenaline and cortisol are released into the bloodstream, causing blood pressure to rise, heart rate and blood sugar to rise, and to provide energy needed to fight or flee. So your heart starts pounding and the muscles tense up. These are normal biological reactions. In other words, the body responds to the stress. Energy is directed away from our digestion and immune system, and the primitive areas of the brain designed to respond to the threat shape our perception and thought, and the rational mind shuts down. What does that mean? Basically, the front part of your brain shuts down, all reasoning shuts down, and it's just automatically decisions are taken to either get out of a situation or stand and face a situation. So the physical sensations of the response are experienced as anger, that's like fight, fear, which is flight, or an inability to do anything, which is the freeze. So how does the EFT change the stress response? So it's been shown scientifically that whenever we activate acupressure points on the body, it reduces the stress response and in many cases turns off the amygdala's alarm system. Okay, so a wee bit of background about EFT. It was created by Gary Craig in the mid 1990s and it's been used successfully by thousands of people around the world to provide healing from numerous problems and conditions. Those problems and conditions include difficult emotions like anger, guilt, shame, sadness, grief, loss, resentment, and worry. It also addresses limiting beliefs such as not feeling good enough and having to get it right all the time, or I have to do it perfectly, or if I don't do or do something, people won't like me, or money doesn't grow on trees, and so on. Anxiety, overwhelm, fear, and acute stress can also be addressed by EFT, such as and including panic attacks and people with certain breathing difficulties. People may have suffered traumatic childhoods and adult memories and abuse, and these can encroach on our lives, especially as we get older. EFT can also address specific phobias, including fear of flying, heights, dogs, and social phobias, such as public speaking or fear of public speaking, fear of meeting new people, and attending social events. EFT is particularly effective in helping people address post-traumatic stress disorder, or to you and me known as PTSD. Also, it addresses depression, burnout, and some people who suffer from insomnia, obsessive compulsive behaviour, eating problems, weight loss and food cravings, learning disorders including dyslexia, ADHD, and so on. It's also been used to help people with various addictions including food, cigarettes, alcohol and drugs, and also to help people manage their pain, including the distress caused by pain. Some people have reported improvements in their conditions as they suffer from fibromyalgia, from migraines, from skin rashes and eczema, and also helping people with relationship problems, not only with other people, but the relationship they have with themselves. I would really like you to give consideration to the fact that even though you feel stressed, even though you feel overwhelmed, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. Whenever we feel stress, it may show up in our mind in a number of ways, and how we, what internal representations we have when we say we're depressed, when we say we're anxious, when we say that we are overwhelmed, when we say that we have a fear or a phobia. How does that show up in your mind? How do you know you're stressed? Is it in the form of a memory? Is it in the form of a movie? Is it in the form of just an image of something that you're concerned about? Are there people in it? What are the expressions on their face? So we look at the sights, we look at the sounds, and it's in that memory, if you like, or that's in that image of your anticipated fear. So we go by the sights, we take a look at the sounds, we take a look at the smells, the tastes, the physical feeling, and the emotional feeling. So there's a number of things that we can do to take a look at that and give consideration then that we actually construct in our mind how we're going to create or view that fear. Is it the fact that on Monday we have to go back to work, we'll have to park the car, and then we have to walk around the corner where that dog came out last time and bit us? Is that going to be something that we're going to waste and worry about all weekend and waste our time thinking about, anticipating that fear? That would be one example. Is it something that's happened in the past that makes us think, oh, this is going to happen in the future? Is it something current that is actually happening right now in this moment? Or is it something that's happening or will happen in the future? So it's important for us to think along the lines of, in EFT terms, how do we actually represent that? Now that might sound complicated, that might sound like a lot of work, but trust me, when we start to use the EFT and show you this, it is very, very simple. It is very, very straightforward. You will not always have an image. You'll not always have a memory. You'll not always have like a mind movie. You'll not always have a physical feeling as a reaction, but you may have one or two of them. So I will explain that in the next video and how that can actually manifest in the body. Okay, so what is EFT? EFT is often been described as an emotional version of acupuncture without the needles. Or it could be described as a unique exercise that calms you so that you can think more clearly about your problem. EFT borrows its science from the Chinese. They have known about the meridian system within the body, which they use and have been aware of for the last 5,000 years. These meridians are channels, if you like, that start from certain points in the skin and then make their way into and finish up in different organs. There's the governing vessel, which will actually be at the top of your head, and then you have certain points along your face, on your upper body, and then your hands as well. There are many of these, but we only use a certain number in EFT. So the tapping points themselves, why do we tap and where do we tap? So we tap at the top of our head, you can see in this graphic here, just inside the eyebrow, just where the skin meets the small hairs on your eyebrow. The side of the eye, just the wee bony part, not on your eye obviously, but just to the side of your eye, underneath your eye, underneath your nose, underneath your lip, your collarbone, which is, if you feel the wee bony part of your collarbone, just come down an inch and across an inch. Now this diagram shows just one side and one hand. You can use both sides. You can tap on the points on your face, on your eyebrow points on either side of your face, or both at the same time. The finger points then, that would be just if you held your hands with your thumbs pointing upwards and your small, the karate chop point they talk about, the wee fatty part of your hand is pointing down towards the floor. If you imagine just looking at the inside of your hand, there are points then just on the top where your nail bed meets the skin. You can just tap on those points on each finger. And I will be showing you this, demonstrating this later on. This slide we use in the training a lot. It is open for interpretation, and it is suggested that the top of the head is the governing vessel. It's where all of the meridians come together. The eyebrow point is supposed to relate to the bladder and may help you treat frustration, restlessness and trauma. The side of the eye has been suggested that meridian will tie into the organ, the gallbladder, and helps people if they are full of rage. Under the eye then is the stomach meridian. Helps people who are anxious or fearful, nervous and maybe have cravings. Under the nose we have the governing vessel, a bit like the one at the top of the head, which is, and this is suggested that it will help people with embarrassment. Under the lip is the central vessel, which helps people with shame. The collarbone point is to do with and connected to your kidney and can help people who are suffering from anxiety, insecurity and grief. When I say can help with, what I mean is, and what I'll explain later, is if you tap on these points, if you activate these points in some way, it can help you if you've got kidney issues, if you tap your collarbone point, or if you've had a loss recently, you're anxious or you feel insecure. Under the arm, it's a point that is just about 4 inches below your armpit. If you're a lady, it's just in line with your bra strap, and it is connected to your spleen, and it can help you if you have a fear of the future or self-esteem. There are a number of other points which we don't use. There's the below the nipple point, which is connected to your liver. When we say we don't use, from a physical point of view, if we're tapping on somebody, or it may not be possible for somebody to be able to access that point, or may not be appropriate to access that point. So that's down to yourself whether you actually physically want to use that on your own. The thumb point then, so if we tap on the top of the thumb, that's to do with our lungs, intolerance and ignorance. Our index finger is the large intestine. The middle finger is to do with circulation. The ring finger is what we call the triple warmer and can help people with resentment, pain and depression. The little finger, if we tap on that, it's the meridian is said to connect to the heart and can help us if we've got anger issues. The karate chop point is just, as the term is, the fatty part of your hand. Imagine if you were doing karate, that if you tap on the karate chop point, the fatty fleshy part of your hand between your finger, your wee finger and your wrist, then that is connected to the small intestine, and sadness and reversals can be helped with. Okay, so the sequence then, we've talked about the different points. The points themselves, they can be, you can use these and tap on these points out of sequence, but for the sake of learning EFT, emotional freedom techniques, I would recommend that you do follow the points all the way down from the top of your head down onto your karate chop point. Okay, so how to apply EFT. In general terms, this graphic I've made up. This is my interpretation, having done this now for 7, coming up on 8 years. There are simply two areas that we are aware of or can be aware of when we want to use EFT effectively. The emotions that we have and where that shows up in the body. In terms of how you tap, you're tapping and you're applying EFT to events from the past that are causing us concern, situations that we're experiencing in this present moment, and then situations that we anticipate may happen in the future. So things from the past, what's happening to us now, and things that we may be worried about that may happen in the future. So what are we doing then? We're tapping on the emotions. We're applying EFT on the emotions such as anger, sadness, contempt, disgust, guilt, fear, nervousness, and shame. Those are only a few of the negative events that we might, or emotions, that we might feel. As well as knowing the emotional side of things, in other words, our mind, we also are aware of the body and the mind connection, the mind-body connection. If we feel anger, we may feel it in our head. If we feel sadness, we may feel it in our chest, and so on. So the body parts could be the head, the neck, the shoulders, the chest, the stomach, the lower back, the hands, the feet, and the skin. Now, there could be specific areas, but just think of yourself as thinking, when I'm tapping or when I feel stressed out, I feel this anxiousness, where do you feel it in your body? The SUDS, the subjective unit of distress, the SUDS, is basically how badly do you feel this? How intense do you feel this? 0 to 10, not no emotion, no feelings whatsoever. 10, high anxiety. So you can give it a out of 10 mark as well. In terms of the setup phrase, so how do we bring all this together, Nigel? If I had an issue such as anger, I would ask myself, where do I feel it? And I would acknowledge it. And then I would say how I would like to feel. So the setup phrase, while tapping on the karate chop point, so you've got one hand tapping on the other one, 2 fingers, your index finger, your middle finger, say of your left hand, just tapping on the karate chop point, that wee fatty part of your right hand, while you acknowledge how you feel. We give, the whole thing about EFT is, yes, it's a talk therapy as such, but you're actually going to be changing how you feel as a result of keeping yourself calm. But we do give it a voice. We do give our emotion and our body part a voice. How do we do that? So if I was tapping on the karate chop point, I would be saying, even though I have this anger in my stomach, when I think about that day last week, that was then, this is now, and I choose to let it go. I might also say, even though I have this sadness in my heart, when I think about losing my pet this morning, I choose to think of the good times I had and the love I gave and received, and know that they are at peace. So if your SUDS level, your out of 10 was 10 out of 10 at the loss of your pet, once you've done the EFT, what you can do is you can check back in and say, well, how do I feel now? This is more working with clients, the numbers side of things. I sometimes use it, sometimes don't, and obviously with respect and love. If it's the loss of a loved one, if it's the loss of a pet, this is done with compassion. This is not just done to clear all feelings and then we never think about our loved one or our pet. That's not what we're talking about here at all. If anything, it gives us clarity. We get ourselves centered, we get ourselves balanced, so that we can actually have thoughts which are constructive and good for our well-being, so that we can sit and reminisce about the love we give to our loved one, the love we give to our animal, our pet, that is no longer here in the physical form, but we can look at it with a peace of mind, if you like, and with clarity, so we can actually have more time to give that love to that loved one. Okay. Another example would be, even though I have this nervousness in my chest, when I think about my job interview next Tuesday, I know I am well qualified and competent for the role, and I choose to remain calm, focused, and enjoy each moment. So we say this while activating the meridian points, the karate chop point. That's, if you like, when we're tapping here, this is the acknowledgement statement. We're acknowledging how we feel, and then we're choosing to remain calm, focused, and enjoy each moment. So if you like, split it into two. Acknowledge how you feel, what the emotion is, and where you feel it in the body, and then how you would like to feel. Law of attraction people sometimes have an issue with this, and they think, well, if I keep acknowledging how I feel, am I not going to get more of it? My way of looking at it is, if it's there to be dealt with, we'll keep attracting stress. We'll keep attracting overwhelm. We'll keep attracting hurt because it needs solved. If we acknowledge it and clear it, then we neutralize that negative emotion, and therefore we don't attract it any further. So once we have acknowledged how we feel, and we've tapped on our karate chop point while saying the emotion and the body part, and then how we'd like to physically feel, how we'd like to move forward and choose to feel better about something, that's done while tapping on the karate chop point. The remainder of the points, then we tap a shortened form of it. So if you remember the points at the top of your head, the eyebrow, the outside of the eye, onto the nose, onto the lip, the collarbone, onto the arm, and down onto your finger points, finishing up with the karate chop point again. But we don't list all of those emotions again on all of those body parts. We do a shortened form. So while we tap on the top of the head, we might say, this anger in my stomach. And then the next point, this anger in my stomach. And then the next point, or the sadness in my heart, or this nervousness in my chest. So while we work our way down the body, activating the other meridian points, which, as you know, are connected to your brain and different parts of your body, you're basically calming your body down by just acknowledging the negative while tapping on the points. Then there comes a point, whenever you've done your full round of EFT, that you check in with yourself and say to yourself, are you still thinking about the same issue? Is it still anger in your chest? Is it still guilt in your stomach? Is it still that feeling of shame that you seem to hold in your shoulders? And then you can go repeat that exercise again. So then you can go back and say, even though I have this remaining anger in my chest, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then you can just tap on the rest of the points, this anger in my chest, this remaining anger in my chest, and so on. Okay, so the questions really to ask yourself would be, how would you like to feel? When we've got to a certain stage on the tapping, you may feel then that, yeah, I feel actually pretty good. And we could leave it there, and that's what we did in the early days of EFT, but now we want to build it up and leave ourselves in a positive state, because sometimes when we clear a negative emotion and we get rid of that tension in our body, there's like a void. So we can fill that void with a positive reference point. So how would you like to feel? You know, imagine the future event where you were able to make that public speaking event, where you were able to complete that job interview and so on, where you were able to pass your driving test. Imagine that future you live in the positive experience, you know, and ask yourself, what are the positive emotions? What are the physical feelings? What are the beliefs about yourself, about the others, and about the world? You know, if you think, yeah, I feel good, it's about a 5 out of 10, ask yourself, how can I really make that more positive? How could I get that up to a 10 out of 10? And then complete further rounds of EFT on your new information and tap in the happiness, the contentment, the joy, the peace, the vitality, the energy, the clarity, the health, and the abundance. Okay, so the practical exercise then. If this was a live group training, we would have passed out these sheets and we would ask everybody in attendance to fill them in. I will be able to make these available to your coordinator so that you can have access to these sheets for yourselves. So this is the exercise. It's called, what is your most pressing issue, your MPI. In other words, what is actually annoying you at the moment? What can't you let go of? What's got you doubting yourself? What do you fear about the future? And then fill in that gap. Give it a heading. That might be my job prospects, or my financial situation, or concerns for my health, concerns for my family. So the second question is, when you think about the most pressing issue, what do you feel in your body? Okay, so remember, we've got the emotions, and then where do we feel it in our body? So you may feel anxiety about your job interview, anxiety about passing the test. Where do you feel it? Is it tension in the neck? Is it a pain in your back? Is it tingling in your fingers? Is there a heat, cold, emptiness, numbness, or nothingness? What is that physical sensation? And number three, give it a title. So it could be my anxiety. We'll keep it very global. Give it a number out of 10. At the moment, it could be 7 out of 10. This anxiety is 7 out of 10. And create a setup statement. Remember, we're going to acknowledge how we feel, and then we're going to say how we'd like to feel. So we acknowledge our situation, our feelings, and then we have a positive affirmation. That would go something like this. Even though I am anxious about the new school curriculum, that's the acknowledgement, I choose to remain confident and know it will work out. That might be for a teacher for sake of argument. Or even though I am concerned for my child's welfare because they're getting bullied, I choose to know that we both can get through this and I will be able to instill confidence in my child. Something like that. So you acknowledge the negative. Even though I feel this tension in my shoulder about thinking about that job interview, I know that I've got all the resources I need to be able to be successful. So you would tap that on your credit chop point 3 times as you go through that. So you've got your acknowledgement and your affirmation, and then you would tap through the rest of the points, a shortened version of it. This anxiety in my chest, my child who's getting bullied, this worry about the test. And you would work all the way through that to go down through the points and go back through the points as many times as you want, back onto the top of your head, down to your credit chop point, back to the top of the head, back through the points to the credit chop point. Do them on one hand, both hands. You can miss out points. You might find a point in your body you prefer. There's nothing wrong here. You can't do this wrong. Just acknowledge how you feel and then how you would like to feel. And once you feel you've got yourself to a certain point where you think, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good here, I want to wrap this up, tap in the positives. In other words, how you would like to feel. Yeah, I feel confident. I've got all the resources I have inside me to get through this. I know that I can get through this. I am fit and healthy. I know that my child's going to be able to get through this as well. I will be able to coach them and help them feel good about themselves. We will take appropriate action. I know I'm going to be good and provide a good service as a teacher to my pupils. I know that I have all of the resources inside me and I deserve to feel happy and healthy. It's possible for me to feel happy and healthy, and it's good for me and everybody else if I just put myself out there and show the real me. Something like that. You'll know exactly what that is, and then you can ramp that up, 10 out of 10. Get it a good 10 out of 10 so you've got a good image, if you like, in your mind of how you'd like to feel and so on, and where you'd like to feel that in your body. Okay, so the purpose of this video then is to bring everything that we've talked about together to try and package it. The best way for me to do this is to just make stuff up in terms of what would be typical way to apply EFT. So we've got our title, what our issue is. I'm just going to use anxiety. I'm going to say that I feel it in my body, and I feel it in my chest, and at the moment it's maybe 8 out of 10. You have your own issues. You've used that sheet, hopefully, the most pressing issue sheet, the MPI sheet, and you'll have an idea of what your issue is, whereabouts you feel that in your body, and then your 0 to 10 scale, how intense is that feeling and emotion in your body. Okay, so we're going to be tapping on the credit chop point, and just repeat after me. Even though I have this anxiety in my chest, right here, right now, I choose to release it and let it go. Even though I have this anxiety feeling in my chest, and it's 8 out of 10, I deeply and completely acknowledge that feeling, acknowledge that anxiety, but I choose to let it go. Even though I have that anxiety in my chest, when I think about that situation, I choose to release it and let it go now, completely. So just tapping through the points, this anxiety in my chest, this anxiety in my chest. I can feel it welling up inside my body. That familiar feeling, that familiar anxiety. It's been there for a while now. It seems to just come out of nowhere. But I felt it before. And I can feel it now. That anxiety in my chest. It's as if it's become part of me. It's as if it's always there. Just when I think I've got things under control, it comes back and bites me. It rises up in my chest. Sometimes it shows up in my stomach. Sometimes it's tension in my neck and back. It makes me fidgety. It keeps me on edge. And it's real. Or is it? This anxiety, it's not something I can hold in my hand. This anxiety in my chest, it's not something I can give to somebody else. So is it real? Or is it imagined? Is it something in my mind that then shows up in my body? Is it something I've created? Yes, the thing I'm worried about, that event from the past or the future that might happen, or something that's happening now, I do have control. Is it something I construct in my mind? I might have no control over the event, but I can control what I imagine. I can control what I make it mean. I've constructed this in my mind, and I can deconstruct this in my mind. And I can choose to remember something more resourceful. If it's happened, it's happened. I can't do anything about that. If it might happen in the future, again, what can I do about that? If it's happening now, what control can I have? Maybe there is an answer. Maybe I can control my anxiety by choosing how I represent that in my mind. If it's a person or a group of people that I'm anxious about, or a specific event that has happened, is about to happen, or is happening sometime in the future, I can choose what I make that mean. If I can't control it physically, by what someone says or does, I can choose what I make that mean. I am doing the best I can in what can be very, very stressful situations and circumstances. And I choose to relax. I choose to breathe fully and deeply. I choose to relax. I choose to be in control. Getting overly anxious and worried will only raise my blood pressure, will raise the rate of my heart, will give me those feelings in my stomach, that churning, will give me that tension in my body, and that might not do me any good. So I now choose to feel differently. I now choose to think differently. I've come through a lot worse, and I survived. I am a survivor, and I owe it to myself to keep myself safe and to heal. And I choose to look at things differently now. Whether they're in my control or not, I deserve to have full health. I deserve to feel relaxed. And I now allow that relaxation, that calmness, that healing, that vitality, that energy. I allow all of that now to enter my body and to replace any negative feelings and to replace any negative emotions with calmness, with clarity, and with love for myself. And I learn to take my life minute by minute. I am safe. I am loved. I can do this. Okay, so that is a process that might maybe seem a bit strange to you at the moment, but through practice you'll find that you'll make this your own. As I say, I've made those words up. When I work with somebody one-to-one, the terms, the language comes from the client, from the other person. Obviously this is a recorded version, so I just decided then to highlight typical responses from people that they might have whenever they've got an issue, or if I'm tapping on myself, working on myself, then these would be things that would come into my mind. There's no wrong way to do this, but I do advise you, if you can, to identify how you are feeling, acknowledge how you're feeling, and then move towards the positive. And whenever you feel that shift in your body, that anxiety going down, and maybe it turns to a different emotion, through time, then you'll find that you'll want to feel good. So it's important to remember then to do your best to end up on the positive side of things. Okay, so hopefully that's been of use to you. My full details you'll have already seen on this video, And for more information, you can check out www.clearyourfears.co.uk. And if I can be any assistance to you, please get in touch. Okay, take care now. Bye.